bound.
Hey guys, Tarr here for the ProAudiofiles.com. In this video I'll be demonstrating how you can use some signal processing techniques if you're trying to do mastering inside of a home recording studio. Specifically, I'll be focusing on some spectral shaping techniques that I like to use to prepare my final mix for all the other processing that I end up doing during mastering. So here's the session that I'm working with. It's a basic pop rock song. I've got multi-track drums over here, bass guitar, electric and acoustic guitar, organ, and vocals. I've got my final mix already set up. I've got the levels just how I like them, and individual processing taking place on each one of the instruments. Then it's just a matter of summing all these signals together, bringing them together over here on my master fader. Right now I've got the iZotope Ozone 5 plugin inserted, but all the modules are bypassed, so there's no processing taking place inside of this plugin. I'll go ahead and play you back the final mix so you can hear what it sounds like before I do any more processing inside of Ozone.
Trouble bound. We hit the town.
In this video, I'll be using this EQ module over here. Right now it's bypassed, so I'm going to turn it on now. And I want to use this module as the first processor when my final mix hits the master bus. To change the order or figure out what order these modules are inside of Ozone, you click on this graph tab right here. It'll bring up a block diagram that'll show you the order from left to right of each one of these processors. So here's my EQ processor. It's over here on the left. It's the first module right now, but if I want to change it, it's just a matter of dragging and dropping into whatever order that I want it. But I do want it to be back here at the front. I'll click close. Alright, the purpose of what I'm going to be doing in this first step of processing is to get rid of any really low frequencies and really high frequencies that can show up in a mix. First off, these frequencies can barely even be perceived by the human ear, so there's not a whole lot of point to have them in your song. Second off, these really low frequencies and high frequencies can even screw up your finished product if you're not careful. Low frequencies can cause your dynamics processors to overreact to signals. These are your compressors and your limiters. And high frequencies could potentially cause aliasing if any harmonics are created above the Nyquist frequency. But we're hoping that the processor is going to take care of all these things in case we are adding harmonics in later on. Anyway, getting back to it, you also have to think about the idea that when music was originally created and printed onto analog tape or vinyl disc, these mediums basically had built-in high-pass and low-pass filters because they couldn't record all frequencies equally. So people just got used to the idea of listening to music like this. So if you've been working in an all-digital recording system with tracking, mixing, and mastering, you might want to think about rolling off some of the low frequencies and the high frequencies so that if you're worried about your mix sounding too digital, this is one way or one difference between digital recordings and analog recordings. So anyway, getting to the processing, let me show you how I like to use low-pass filters and high-pass filters to remove these problem frequencies in a mix. So I'll start out by focusing on the low frequencies, and I'm going to use high-pass filters. All right, to begin with, what I want to do is use a special kind of filter inside of the Ozone plugin. I'm going to switch over to these digital ones right here because I like this special control in here, and I want to make sure that I'm using linear phase filters. This is a special kind of filter that makes sure that I'm not screwing up any other aspect of my mix. When I've got all these different frequencies summed together on my master fader, I don't want to cause any phase distortions and stuff like that that can happen. So I'm going to use linear phase such that the only thing that I'm changing is the relative amplitude of the frequencies and nothing else. All right. Next, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to use this first filter right here, switch it to a high pass. I'm going to start out by using what's called a brick wall filter. This has a very steep slope at the cutoff filter, and so what this is going to do is just all these low frequencies below 25 Hertz are going to get cut off very quickly, and all these high frequencies in the pass band above 25 Hertz are not going to be affected. Additionally, you could experiment with things like flat type filter and change the Q to something very high like 48. If you have 12, that's a shallower slope, but if you get up to 48, it can be very steep. But just to be safe, I'm going to use a brick wall filter. Another thing that I like to do is actually add in a second high pass filter. In this case, I'll use a resonant one. What I'm going to do is change the Q and the cutoff frequency. If this brick wall high pass filter has a very sharp skirt, what I want to do is use this high pass filter with a very flat skirt so that it's gradually rolling off the low frequencies before they hit this really steep filter. All right, so I'm going to play around with these, change the Q. I don't want to roll off too many of the low frequencies, but I just want to have a nice, slow, gradual roll off here. So if I turn these off, you can see one by one. There's the high pass filter, brick wall, and the more gradual one. Again, I'll just make sure that this is like this. The combination of them is going to have a sharp skirt down here and then a gradual one here. Again, this kind of processing, anything you're doing in the mastering stage, shouldn't be very dramatic. You should hardly even be able to hear it. So if I play it back, you're probably even not going to notice, and I bypass it and bring it back in, that anything's happening. But that's good. I'm cleaning up the signal. I'm preparing it for dynamics processing, and you can even barely tell that there's anything taking place. So here's what it sounds like.
Trouble bound, we hit the town.
What I'm going to do is the same exact mirrored thing up here at the high frequencies. So I'll turn on this 8th filter to begin with, select the low pass filter, the brick wall one. Maybe I'll select this to be about 19,000 hertz. You know, humans can't really hear anything above 20K, and most humans, especially if you're a musician, you probably can't even hear above 18, 19. Anyway, especially I grew up playing the drums, so I lost a lot of high frequencies just because I didn't protect my hearing from that. So you should definitely think about protecting your hearing so you don't lose those high frequencies. But anyway, most people can't hear it, so I'm just going to get rid of those because I don't need to worry about anything being above that range. Next up, I'll add in another one with a more gradual slope, low pass filter, a resonant one. All right, bring the frequency up here, change the Q. All right, so it's more gradual. In some cases, what I even like to do in this case is change the Q so that I'm adding in some high frequencies before I cut them off. This is just going to add some extra top-end sparkle, but I don't have to worry about adding too much top-end sparkle because I'm rolling off the extra high ones. All right, then it's just a matter of playing around with the Q and the frequency cutoff until I like what I've got. So maybe something like this, where I'm rolling off between 12K up to 18K is better.
Trouble bound, we hit the town. And I'll never forget that sound. Tonight I fell asleep at the wheel. I woke up just in time.
So again, very subtle, very gradual processing taking place, but I'm cleaning up the signal for all the other processing that takes place after the fact during mastering, whether it be dynamics or using harmonic exciters and stuff like that. That's all I've got for now. Stay tuned for the next video where I'll be demonstrating how to use very subtle reverb at the mastering stage to really blend together all the elements of your final mix.
Trouble bound.